Also thanking the Long Beach City Council and the members of the council that are here in support. The entire city leadership is in response, and as is, of course, our entire police department and fire department. And we're going to be hearing from the chief of police and the chief of fire as well. And so thank you all for being here. I want to begin by saying, and I think it's really important to say, that here in Long Beach, we are proud of what we're seeing this morning. I just came back from visiting and touring throughout the downtown and had a chance to speak to many residents, business owners that are out there right now cleaning up some of the destruction and looting that happened last night. And to see our residents, many with tears in their eyes, with brooms, sweeping, cleaning, I was awestruck and amazed by their resilience, their love for our city, and their commitment to each other. And so to what is probably over 1,000 people right now cleaning the downtown streets of Long Beach and across the city, thank you. You make us proud, and you are exactly what Long Beach is all about. And what is happening this morning across our city with this amazing show of love is in complete contrast to what happened yesterday evening, which I want to talk to you about today. What we saw last night with the looting and, quite frankly, organized criminal activity that was happening in Long Beach is absolutely against what we stand for as a city and as a country. These criminals, as you're going to hear tonight, were organized. They've been hitting cities across California and the country and completely stood against the values of what the people of the city were actually protesting and demonstrating yesterday. We had probably around 3,000 people peacefully protesting for a better and more just America and community and city just yesterday afternoon. A vast majority of these folks were out there doing the right thing, talking about their amendments and their First Amendment rights to be able to protest peacefully. And our police officers there were there also to not just protect the community, but to protect the entire group of folks that were out there as well. And that part of the day was going really well, and I want to thank all of them for being peaceful. But then, of course, real quickly, the violence began with a group of individuals that hit our city last night. The chief's going to get into some details about the arrests that were made and what we can expect, but I want to give everyone a little bit of overview of where we're at right now. First is what happened last night to our small businesses was unacceptable. We should be angry and saddened by the behavior of these people and these criminals. There were some things that should give us some pause and that are heartening. There was no loss of life last night. We did not lose one person in our community due to this violence. We had no police officers or firefighters that were seriously injured or hospitalized. And while there certainly were attempts at lighting fires across the city and smaller fires erupted, we only had one major structure fire there on the corner of 7th and Pine Avenue. And thanks to the Long Beach Fire Department, all the other fires, which the fire chief will discuss, were put out rather quickly. I also want to say that there were, of course, some injuries last night to members of the public, and to everyone that was injured. Our hearts and love go out to you. I know also that a reporter, Adolfo Guzman Lopez, of course, who I think we all know and love, was also hit by a rubber bullet. I've personally also communicated with him, apologized to him as well, and we look forward to discussing that in the days ahead. But I want to thank the media also for covering and for being there and for communicating with the public and getting the message out. So to all of you, thank you for doing so. I also want to add that the Long Beach Police Department last night did a fantastic job, and we should be proud of their work and the community's work in doing the response. And I want to make sure that we also answer questions about how the city was prepared. This city was prepared for the protests, as the chief will explain. Within an hour of those protests, mutual aid began coming in from across the county. And when mutual aid was exhausted, the National Guard was also brought in to assist those efforts, and they are still here right now. I think it's important for people to realize also, I had some questions, why wasn't the National Guard here from the beginning? That's just not the way the National Guard system works. You have to first exhaust your mutual aid and the agencies around you before the National Guard gets approval. The National Guard right now has a statewide mission in California, and they are in all cities across the state. And so we went and followed the procedures, and I'm really proud of the Long Beach Police Department for the work that they did and for the amount of life and property that was protected. And to the small business owners that have been damaged, to the businesses that are hurting, and to the workers, please know that this city stands with you, and we promise you that with every single one of you will work to rebuild and ensure your business bounces back. I want to also just say, finally, that we are also preparing for tonight and the days ahead. We're calling today for an additional curfew. So beginning at 1:00 p.m. today, we will set a curfew for all of our business districts across the city. And we will have more information about exact locations here over the course of the next hour. And then at 4 p.m., we're putting in a citywide curfew for the rest of the city. Now, why is this important? It is important that folks stay home. It's important that today, stay at home, take care of your family. We have the Long Beach Police Department, our mutual aid partners, and the National Guard all out patrolling and taking care of the city and our businesses. We also have our police department with our federal and state partners also have and are working with our intelligence community to ensure we have the best information about what is actually happening with these organized looters that are coming in and out of cities and causing destruction. Because the folks that were doing this, as you saw many of you on television, that's not Long Beach. And that's not what Long Beach is all about. And so I want to thank the city for being strong, for supporting the men and women of the Long Beach Police Department, and for all of you that were peacefully protesting for the work that we have to do still in America to heal this country. I want to thank you all as well. We're going to hear right now from our Chief of Police. We're going to hear from our Fire Chief, and then we're going to answer your questions. Chief.
Thank you, Mayor, and good morning to everybody. As has been described, yesterday was a very sad day for us that love Long Beach. And the mayor described it. Today's a new day. It's a beautiful day. And if you drive around our city, it's a 180 from what you saw yesterday. People cleaning, people who love this place and they want to make it beautiful and are talking about what do we do to prevent the violence that occurred on our streets yesterday. As you know by now, we had a scheduled protest that was going to take place in front of the police department headquarters building in downtown Long Beach. We were expecting several hundred protesters. That's the information that we had. And that quickly turned to several thousand protesters coming from different directions, doing a variety of things. But the interesting thing about this group that hit our city yesterday, I want to emphasize that the majority of the group was peaceful. And I wish all the violence that occurred yesterday would not have occurred, because with the mayor who spoke before me and the city council that's to my right, and I've talked to each and every one of them, we've talked about meaningful change with policing, not only in the city, but across our country. And instead of talking about that today, we're talking about the violence, the theft, all the criminal activity that occurred around the peaceful protest that happened yesterday. I wanted to talk a little bit about the planning that the police department went to leading up to this event. We've actually been preparing for civil unrest. That's part of our job. We're consistently preparing ourselves. But as you know, as COVID health crisis hit us, and then right behind that, we're talking about the economic crisis, I think for all of us, we absolutely anticipated, but we're praying that it didn't happen, that we would have civil unrest. So we actually in the police department assigned some command staff to properly plan, equip us, and train us to make sure we are ready for what happened yesterday. So as yesterday did come up, or really this weekend, really being observant, communicating with our law enforcement partners as to what was going across the country, we were looking, learning, talking to people. I was specifically on the phone at least twice a week with major city chief peers around the country, learning from successes, from failures, and how to deploy our people. And that's what we did for this weekend. We actually deployed additional people Saturday. Thank God we didn't need them, and at least in our city, but what we ended up doing is we sent a large contingency of police officers to the city of Los Angeles, because as you see, Los Angeles was having some challenges. And in law enforcement, we have a great partnership where we help each other. So we sent people to them. Yesterday was a different story. As we prepared for Sunday's protest, we brought in hundreds of additional Long Beach police officers that were online with planning, looking at contingencies, talking about potential looting, and all those things that were going to happen. But there's something about this crowd that came to Long Beach. And again, I want to emphasize that the majority of them were there for the right reasons. I can actually tell you that not only myself, but almost every member of my police department feels the same way that a lot of the peaceful protesters felt. We were offended and appalled by what we saw on that video. We don't want law enforcement to be represented that way. But when we look at what happened yesterday, there was a smaller group of individuals who created chaos and eventually hit a lot of our individual businesses. I don't know how that moves us forward. I think that was a very negative thing for each and every one of us. And yes, you saw on live television some of our businesses being looted. And I've got to tell you, that was offensive. We were being interviewed by the media. We were getting calls. How do you let this happen? We didn't allow it to happen. We were responding from hotspot to hotspot, getting there sometimes minutes, sometimes 10, 15 minutes afterward. And just to give you an idea, the call load for the Long Beach Police Department went, the average call load for a regular day was, the calls are about 1,726 per day. That is our average. Yesterday, 4,686 calls for service. That is a dramatic increase. That's what we were looking at yesterday. I am not going to stand here and make any excuses about anything that happened. I don't mind being scrutinized. It is my job. I'm accountable for everything that happens at the Long Beach Police Department. But if there's anger to be directed, it is at the individuals who came here, interjected themselves in a peaceful protest with a very good cause, and decided they were going to, 1, throw objects at police officers, 2, destroy police cars, 3, break windows and loot our businesses. That's where our anger needs to be directed. I think we as a community need to stand up and, 1, say, yes, peaceful protest, great cause, but this criminal behavior is absolutely unacceptable. That's where our anger needs to be directed. And as the mayor stated earlier, we are getting ready again for today. We have hundreds of Long Beach police officers ready to deploy. And I've got to tell you something, each of them that were involved in yesterday's incident are back today. Like me, we're praying that nothing happens. But as I was talking to officers who were leaving at 3 and 4 in the morning that had worked 16, 18-hour days, I had several officers tell me, Chief, this was unbelievable. A lot of us feel the same way the peaceful protesters feel, but they were talking about how they were being challenged. There were rocks, bricks, bottles being thrown at them. Several officers got hit in the head. Thank God they were wearing helmets. But how do you think that feels? Just because we wear this uniform. That is not a good feeling. I don't want that to happen. This is not the way to create change, not at all. I do want to mention something else about resources, and the mayor mentioned it. I stated that we had over 350 additional officers on Sunday on top of our deployment. Within the first hour that we got a sense that the crowd was growing, we had already put mutual aid on alert. We do this when we have protests coming. The minute we saw the crowd swell, we immediately notified the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Emergency Operations Bureau. We asked for additional resources, and they said, yes, we're going to send them to you. It is going to take longer because the region was impacted. Yesterday, you were watching television. Other cities in Southern California were significantly impacted. So we got resources eventually through the night. We had hundreds of other officers from agencies from our neighbors, Signal Hill, Seal Beach. We had Ventura County sheriffs here. We had agencies from the South Bay that were here. I had conversations with Michael Moore, the chief of police, who's a great friend of mine. He sent officers here. I also talked to Sheriff Villanueva last night, and he eventually sent some officers our way. Not to mention, we have the National Guard here, and we're asking that they could stay here as long as they can. So we were very prepared, and we will continue to be prepared. My job is to plan for worst case scenario. But if I, again, show you the call load we were involved in, that's the amount of work that was happening. It was happening fast. It was happening furious. And I'm going to get off the mic here, but I want to say one more thing. Can you imagine being the family member of a police officer and sending your husband, wife, mother, or father, or your son or daughter to work today with what you saw on television yesterday? How do you think that feels? These officers did an amazing job. The discipline they showed after being called names, getting things thrown at them, getting their vehicles destroyed, but they stood firm and they didn't overreact from what we saw. With that, there's a lot I could say. As you can tell, I've got a little bit of energy in me this morning, even though I've gotten 2 hours sleep. I'm going to turn it over to my partner, the fire chief. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Luna, Mr. Mayor. Let me just start out by telling you how proud I am of the city of Long Beach for the way that they've responded to the events that occurred yesterday. And also how we empathize with the fire department empathizes with not only the residents and business owners that were adversely affected by the events of yesterday, but also with the protesters, the peaceful protesters that came here and just wanted their voices to be heard, and that was squelched by the mayhem that occurred in the aftermath. So I empathize with you on that accord. I also want to point out just a couple of things, and one is that at the end of the evening yesterday, I saw a success. As I've stated before, I was here in '92 when the riots occurred. The riots affected the entire city. There was burning for days, and there was just very little control at that point, and it was a very, very difficult situation. What I saw yesterday was the culmination of years of training and preparing. I know in the last couple of days I've been sitting with Chief Luna, his command staff, our city management, and all of our city partners. And everybody has just come together to put together a good plan, and I think that we had a very, very successful day yesterday, though obviously there was damage and we do need to recover. Along those same lines, we don't operate in a silo, and I can tell you that we needed assistance from the fire department. We saw that early. On a given day, every morning we respond to the region, let them know who we have available to respond, and also who can respond to help us. Yesterday, we saw very, very quickly that we were going to need some help. We reached out to the region for Master Mutual Aid. LA County sent us a strike team very, very quickly. They were with us shoulder to shoulder downtown. Quickly followed by that, we asked for another strike team. We got additional companies from Anaheim, Costa Mesa, Huntington Beach, Newport Beach, and the city of Orange. And to those fire chiefs and their fire departments, I say thank you. Job well done. Thank you very, very much. All that, what that meant for the fire department is yesterday we had in excess of 100 fires, structure fires, vehicle fires, debris. Of all of that, we had only one major alarm structure fire, which I'm sure most of you saw last night at 7th and Pine. What I can tell you is when I saw that on the news, I thought, okay, we're going to lose more than a few structures on that because it was going and had some headway. But when our troops arrived there and got to work, they kept that structure fire to a single structure, though there was brand new construction on two sides of that building. And so I'm very, very proud, and I just need to make note of that to the men and women of the Long Beach Fire Department. I can tell you that the training and the preparation has not stopped. As of this morning, at headquarters, our command staff is meeting with our chief officers. They're preparing another plan for today. We're getting ready. At the kitchen table, as we do every morning, the off-going crews are relaying information to the crews that are coming on. What worked? What didn't work? What can we do better? Where do you need to be safer? That's happening as well. I just left our EOC, where not only fire and PD are there preparing, but all the members of the city are there in preparation for today. And in closing, I just want to tell you how very proud I am. The very first images I saw this morning as I turned on the news were the people of Long Beach, the residents, the business owners, cleaning up the sidewalks. It was foreign to me from what I saw last night. Last night was devastation and destruction, glass everywhere, and this morning, the majority of it was clean. There were people out with brooms and sweeping up and putting things back together. We are resilient. Long Beach is going to come back. We will rebound, and we're going to be stronger than ever. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks again to our fire chief and again to our fire department. I think we've seen images of many cities across the country that have had multiple fires and mass destruction as it relates to fires across the city and buildings. And the work they did to contain that to just one major structure fire was heroic, and I want to thank them as well as the Long Beach Police Department. Well, we're going to go ahead and take questions from the media.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first question is from Emily Rasmussen from the Press Telegram. Go ahead, Emily.
Hi, thank you for having me. How many people were arrested last night, roughly, in regards to the protests and rioting and curfew?
Yeah, we had roughly about 75 arrests that were made last night. In the evening, of course, we'll have details about what those arrests are like in the days ahead and who exactly was being arrested. But of course, there was a lot of folks that were out beyond the curfew, causing crimes. And again, like the chief said, if you're a criminal and you come into our city to cause issues, we're going to arrest you. And that's going to continue to happen today. I recommend everyone to please follow the curfew and stay out of the city this evening, because the police department, our mutual aid partners, and the National Guard are out, and we want to keep everyone safe for this evening. Next question.
The next question is from Mike Kessler from KPCC. Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I am a colleague of Adolfo Guzman Lopez, who was struck with a rubber bullet in the throat yesterday around 3rd and Pine. His description of the incident states that there was no unrest or chaos, that people had been kneeling. He was clearly doing the work of a reporter. And he was nevertheless fired upon without warning. Can you respond to that and explain why that happened in that context?
You know, I don't know the exact details of the incident. I'll let the chief respond. But I will say that I personally reached out to Adolfo last night. We communicated over messaging today. I have apologized to him for what happened to him. And I think the media is doing is heroic work. So obviously will investigate that incident, but I'll let the chief comment further on that.
I really appreciate the work that the media is doing, covering these incidences. It's bringing the level of violence that's occurring to everybody's living room, which I think needs to happen. I was made aware of this incident earlier today. And before coming over here, I wanted to make sure that somebody from our internal affairs section immediately gets a hold of Rodolfo, and we want to know what happened. Yes, we have a version of what happened, but being in this business for 34 years, there's always two sides to every story. I do not want anybody from the media to get hurt. Anytime you hear of a media member getting arrested or force being used, it kind of shakes us to our core. So I will assure you that the incident will be fully investigated and we'll get to the bottom of what happened. Thank you.
Next question.
Thank you, Chief. The next question is from Jeremiah from the Long Beach Post. Go ahead, Jeremiah.
Hi, you guys. Thank you. I actually have two questions. Well, two topics. Where was this intel about the size of the protest coming from? You said it was only expected to be a few hundred people. Why did that turn out to be so wrong? And at that point, did you have information about the possibility of looters coming in and taking advantage of this, like they have in other areas? And second, it's my understanding that around 3:30 yesterday, as the protest was swelling, the city was on a level 2 tactical alert. This part was on a level 2 tactical alert, meaning officers can still take their regularly scheduled days off, scheduled vacation time. When was the decision made to go to an all hands on deck full tactical alert, and why wasn't that decision made earlier?
Sure. I'll let the chief kind of walk us through as far as the resources. I mean, we had the entire force of the Long Beach Police Department ready to be activated, and we're mostly activated. Of course, you have to also, the way the shifting works is you have to have people on scene and also people ready to take their place as shifts move forward. So I'll let the chief explain how kind of that works. But I think that the police department acted heroically yesterday. So Chief, do you want to address the first part also?
Yes, thank you for the question, Jeremiah. Yes, we did set a stage 2 tactical alert yesterday, but even within those parameters, we actually increased the size of the department by hundreds of officers on top of our already scheduled deployment. And you got to remember, when we talk about deployments, we have multiple staggered shifts throughout the day. So you can't, some people say, why didn't you bring in the entire department? You can't. We're 24 hours. So you've got to stagger the shifts and bring in as many people as you can, and always think forward 12, 14, 16 hours ahead. So obviously, as we brought in all the people and as the night went on, we did shift to where we're now on a stage 3, which means everybody in the police department, even if you're on a vacation, has been recalled. That was as effective as of early this morning. Now, in regards to the first part of your question, why were we so wrong? I'm going to tell you something. Being in this business a long time, we get information from different places, and you try to adapt to what you have in front of you. Yes, eventually thousands and thousands of people showed up. We had hundreds and hundreds of officers. We got hundreds and hundreds of more officers in, and we started dealing with it one step at a time. But to suggest that we got it wrong, I don't think we got it wrong. It's interesting because I'm being asked questions about things that we did wrong. If you look at every major city in the United States that's been hit with this, I don't know if you have any city where multiple buildings haven't been burned and destroyed, multiple buildings been looted, and again, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a business owner. One business was too much, but overall, if you look at what didn't happen, I think our city did pretty darn good. And now as we look forward, we always want to get better. We'll look at everything, but we were prepared, and our officers, our firefighters, the city family did a really good job yesterday.
All right, we're going to break away from this press conference in Long Beach, and you can continue to watch this on abc7.com and our ABC7 Los Angeles app.
Welcome to Eyewitness News at 11:30. Widespread protesting and looting has been seen over the weekend in San Bernardino as well. We just heard what was happening in Long Beach, but it includes in San Bernardino one man caught on video setting the DMV on fire.
Eyewitness News reporter Rob McMillan is live in San Bernardino with a look at the aftermath as more protests are expected across the Inland Empire today. Rob.
Well, we're at the intersection of Waterman and Baseline, and this was really the flashpoint. Several businesses were looted last night. You can see folks cleaning up behind me. But what a difference about 12 hours makes. We're about to show you what happened last night, but right now, just about 10 minutes ago, this group of folks from the community prayed in a circle with 2 San Bernardino police officers, and then you can see more of them on the curb. They have signs. They're begging for this community to find some togetherness and find some peace. You know, as many people who were out here last night looting, there are as many here now helping to clean up. The owner of this beauty supply store in San Bernardino says she could hardly believe what she saw on surveillance video around 9 o'clock last night.
This is not right things. If they want to complaining something about to the people, they just make that issue only, not stealing, not busted somebody's business.
Joyce Kang says looters showed up several times overnight. She says it appears they tried to set fire to her store. What wasn't burned or stolen was destroyed.
This is a mom and pop store. I'm a single mom. So I have to, live with the 2 kids. When people make this problem, how can I live?
Several businesses were looted last night in San Bernardino. Someone was spotted going into a DMV office and trying to torch the place. Outside the looted beauty supply store, I asked some people who know the owner what they thought about what happened last night. Bottom line, it's complicated.
But I don't think they should be sitting.
When what happened, they started attacking police officers, started destroying equipment. That's when we started going in. Dealing with thousands of people in one location, well, completely somewhere different, another group of what I say were organized criminals started to break windows and loot down at the Pike. They were initially successful, and then we responded units from the staged police officers that we had, and they got down there, created a shield, and the looting stopped there. And then periodically we were getting looting calls outside of the area where we had the hundreds of officers located in the downtown area. And as time went on, we were responding to those. But let's be honest, there were media cameras rolling around, and they were looking for looting that was happening, and they were getting there much earlier than the police were, but eventually we were going to get there. I do want to say one other thing. There were a whole lot of cameras out there. And if you were looting, and we have your license plate number, and we have your face, we're coming after you, and we're going to arrest you. Thank you.
And let me add one more thing, Kelly. I think it's important. I think you're probably referring to some of the images that we've seen on social media or on the news where you will see officers, and then you'll see looting happening, whether it's across the street or adjacent to the officers. And I think it's important to remember that the officers that are on scene are doing multiple things. One is they're first and foremost protecting the public, they're protecting each other, and they're doing what they can to stop what could be multiple crimes happening at the same time. And so you have people that are also peaceful protesters mix in to all of the chaotic situations. And so it may be that at that moment, the police officer or the police officers have to make judgment calls about what's in the best interest of the entire public while multiple crimes could be happening at once. And so the police has to make those judgment calls. And I know it's hard to see an image of police officers standing together and then maybe something happening across the street, but please know that there are things happening all around them, and they are using all of their training and knowledge to do the right thing and also protect the public. And so that is sometimes, I know, a frustrating image to see, but it's one that we have to understand. And again, there was no loss of life last night. And that is because of the work of the Long Beach Police Department, the fire department, and the community in ensuring that people were also kept safe. And that's really important to emphasize, particularly what you're seeing all across the country. Jay.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question is from Hetty Chang from NBC4. Go ahead, Hetty.
Hi there. Thanks for taking my question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
The Men's Warehouse fire on Pine and 7th, do we know whether that was caused by looters? You had mentioned the 75 arrests. How many of those, were looting arrests, and any idea where they came from? And lastly, what is your suggestion to business owners who saw what happened last night and are concerned may happen again tonight and want to perhaps take matters into their own hands to protect their businesses?
Yeah, we're going to have information on the arrest. The chief will have the police department will have that later on. Just say our advice to our business owners is we are out there. Stay vigilant. I think the community is aware. We have more information about who obviously is coming in and out of the city, and we're prepared for this evening with all of our partner agencies and the work that's happening with the Long Beach Police Department. Also, business districts are going to be closed per the curfew. And remember, we had thousands of people in the downtown, of course, protesting. And so that was, of course, the impetus for some of these kind of rogue protesters and criminals to mix in. But Chief Espino, do you want to talk about any information we have about the fire at 7th and Pine?
So unfortunately, at this time, it's still so close in time that we don't have enough information that I can give you anything definitive. But what I can tell you is that our arson investigators are currently investigating that fire. And not only do they go in and do forensics, but they're going to be looking around at the cameras in the area. So hopefully we do have something later on down the road.
Next question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Fire Chief. The next question is from James from the Los Angeles Times. Go ahead, James.
Hi, Mayor. Hi, Chief. James from the LA Times. Early on in this press conference, Mayor Garcia, you referenced organized groups, possibly from outside Long Beach, who've hit other cities being involved in the looting. Can you just elaborate on that or explain what evidence you have of this? You've linked the people involved yesterday to looting in other parts of the region.
Yeah, I don't think I'll have any more to say on that right now. I think the chief and the police department are obviously are having conversations with other agencies and some of our federal partners and federal agencies as well. And so, but I think it's pretty clear by seeing the type of activity and how organized the activity was that there is a strategy of going city to city and doing some of this this criminal work. I think we all saw what happened in Santa Monica, which was unbelievable to watch, and then some of that unfold in Long Beach as well. And so I think we'll have more to say on that in the days ahead.
All right, Mayor. The next question and the last question from the media is from Aaron Mendelson from KPCC. Go ahead, Aaron.
Hi. Yeah. Regarding the shooting of my colleague, reporter Adolfo Guzman Lopez, can you tell us the identity of the officer who shot him with the rubber bullet, and let us know if that officer will be back on the streets again today?
I have no information on that incident yet, Chief. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, as I stated earlier, very good question. Learned about this morning. I don't have any of the details on it, so I can't even comment on it yet. Eventually, we can have that conversation with you, with Rodolfo, and we'll go from there.
So no more questions, right?
Yeah, actually, we have one written question from KABC from Julie, and I'll just read this, and that was, she just was not on the actual call. It said, the most recent press release reads, response plans were developed for unlawful assembly and isolated illegal activity. Yet we saw officers standing by watching as businesses downtown were being looted. Why were officers refraining from making arrests and intervening? And Chief, I think you covered on that, but could you care to elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, and I'll elaborate too, because I think I keep hearing this, and I just want to be very, very clear that the police department acted heroically yesterday. We should be proud of the work that they did, and they are working their asses off. And so this idea that they're just standing around is just complete BS. They have a strategy in place to make sure that they're taking care of the city. They are taking care of the public, of which we lost no lives yesterday, of which no police officers were hurt. And if you look at the protest itself ended rather peacefully. And of those that were there not causing problems. And the interactions between the police and the public in general were not the type of disturbing images you're seeing in other parts of the country. And so the police officers have a strategy to keep the public safe. And sometimes what you see on social media or in a video, there's a lot happening in that space, not just that. So this idea that they weren't protecting the stores is just a false narrative, and you hear that, of course, in other places as well. They did a great job, and they're going to continue to do that work in the days ahead. Let me also, before we conclude, I want to I know I introduced the council earlier. The Long Beach City Council has been working incredibly hard, and I want to just thank them for the support. I know we have Councilmember Roberto Uranga here, Councilwoman Janine Pierce here, Councilwoman Mary Zendejas here, Councilman Rex Richardson here, and Councilwoman Stacey Mungo here. And I just want to thank them and the rest of the entire City Council for their leadership. They're out in the communities and working hard. And actually, one more thing, Jake, I should remind people. As a reminder, the curfew is in place for 1 p.m. in our business districts, 4 p.m. citywide. Please stay home. And please also remember that we still have a health crisis as it relates to COVID-19 that we're dealing with at the same time. And so please stay safe, keep your family safe, and we'll have more information later today. Thank you.